using it as a foundation to do better for myself and to do for others. And that's my day-to-day life. And I found my calling to truly be an advocate for those who are the most vulnerable, especially children.
I have a very special guest today on Purpose Mindset. His name is Peter Mutabazi. He has a new book coming out called Now I Am Known. He has a company of the same name and a YouTube vlog of the same name as well. And Peter is an entrepreneur, an international advocate for children, the founder of Now I Am Known, a corporation that supplies resources that encourage and affirm children, a single father and foster dad. Mutabazi is a former street kid who's worked for World Vision, Compassion International, and the Red Cross, and has appeared on media outlets such as the BBC, The Today Show, and is a passionate popular speaker. He currently lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Peter, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me. Truly a pleasure to be with you and to share a little bit more of our journeys.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here today. This is the book, everybody. The release date for it is August 30th. I was able to receive a copy from Peter, and I read through this thing in 2 days, and I'm telling you, you won't be able to put it down. His story is absolutely amazing. It's quite literally one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard in my entire life, and it's full of hope and one of the most wonderful messages that anyone can be a part of. And so as we jump in, Peter, I just want to share with everybody, you can pick up the book and pre-order it. Is that right? Anywhere books are sold?
Yes, anywhere in the world, yes. Everywhere a book is sold, you can get it.
Okay, so we're going to get into this. I don't want to give away all of the details of Peter's story because you do go quite in depth with your journey through life, where you started and what brought you to where you are today. We're going to touch on some of the highlights of that. But again, I want to encourage everybody to pre-order this book anywhere books are sold. And then also, as I mentioned, check out the vlog that he has. Right now you have Skylar, Rudy, Anthony, Zay, Simba, and Rafiki. Is that right in your home, your family?
You got them right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Those are my minions. They keep me on my toes 24/7.
I believe it. I've watched some of the show, and it's a lot to keep up with. You guys have a new home right now, which is incredibly exciting as well. But everyone, check out the vlog. And let's just jump in, Peter. Share with us, if you will, in the audience here, sort of where your beginning started in Uganda, what life was like, that early part of your life, up to about 10 years old, just some of that experience that you had that led to that transitional moment, leaving the village where you were. What was that like for you growing up initially?
Well, yes, I grew up in Uganda in a small little village called Kabale. I mean, as a kid, life was, it's one thing to learn poverty along the way. You're like, wait a minute, we don't have enough, but it's another thing to know your life is at stake right from the get-go, I think, but I didn't know I have a name until when I was 2 years old, because for most kids that were born during my time in my village, 60% of them would die before the age of 2. So I did not have a name until when I was 2 years old. So from the get-go, you kind of knew your survival or being alive was just a sheer blessing in some way. And then the day-to-day life was miserable. It's not like, I cannot remember if I ever had a childhood. You know how kids can play, go out and do something. At the age of 4, I was able to walk 3 miles to get a gallon of water. At 4 years old, I could take care of my 2 siblings while mom was in the garden. So for me, from the get-go, all I knew was just misery, hopelessness in so many ways. Mom didn't provide enough food to eat. It's hard if you can't provide for a child. How do you tell them to dream? How do you tell them there's a future for you? And then at the age of 4 as well, that's when I began to visit other dads. And I would look at their dads and look at my own dad, and I'm like, there's a difference, that my dad is different, that I realized that, he was abusive in every shape, form you could think of, but my mom loved us so much. But at the same time, the same abuse that we got at the same thing she faced as well. So there wasn't really an opportunity to someone to say, it's gonna be okay. The one who should tell you was feeling or being in the same situation as well. So life just really, I would say, like, I never wanted to see the next day because today was hard enough that tomorrow was another horrible hopelessness that you're going to face. So in some way, to me, to dream tomorrow was, I wish I didn't have to think about tomorrow. you know then at the age of 10, I somehow understood that my dad was so horrible that he could take my life, and I thought, why should I give him an opportunity to take my own life? Like, I would rather give it to someone else. So I thought of running away. I'd never been 20 miles away, and I went to the bus station and I asked the lady, hey, which bus of this goes the farthest? And she pointed one. And it's not like I was going to a better place. It's not like I was looking for a better future. It was more of, I would rather die in the hands of a stranger than my own dad. But also, I didn't want him to bury me in somewhere. I was like, how far can I go that he would never see my dead body in somewhere? And so that's why I ran away, and I ended up in Kampala because of the misery at home and the
Yeah.
agony I saw towards my mom as well.
So, the book, you go into such detail of what that suffering was like as a young person growing up, and it's hard for people that I went through trauma and difficulty as a child, but it's hard for people that have grown up in a first world country to truly understand what that life is like, and to know self-preservation mode and survival mode is what was driving you every day. And there was so much suffering. We don't understand hunger the same way that you describe with your story in the book. And then on top of it, as you mentioned, the abuse from your father. One of the things that really struck me when you were describing that is the person that's really supposed to be there for you as the role model, as someone that
Mhm.
should be a protector and an encourager from you, was the very opposite of that in every way. Like you said, physical abuse, but on top of that, the psychological abuse that he inflicted on you, making you believe that you would never be good enough, that you weren't worthy, that you were garbage, that you would never amount to anything, and trying to reaffirm that for you over and over again is really, what, like I said, just resonated so deeply for me. The power of words, that we have
Yes.
as people, as parents, as friends, as family members, and all the opportunities that we have to either encourage someone or break them down. And you really went through that in the most intense way as a child and prompted you to run away at 10. Tell us a little bit about what it was like when you got to this city of Kampala, and what that experience was like for you at the bus station there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you use the words. Yes, I think my dad's words were worse than anything else. But every day I had my dad say, "You're hopeless. You never amount to anything. I wish you were never born, so I have to feed. I don't not have to feed you." That's what I had every day. So you can think about, if someone is telling you those words, like, how do you think of yourself? So running away, of course, once I got to Kampala, I had never been that far. They spoke a different language. It was a city, like commotion was just overwhelming in some way. But quickly I knew that I could survive because I saw other kids around, on the same bus I came in. They were trying to pick up food and trying to help people and yell and surviving. And I looked at them and I looked at one smiled. I was like, this might be a friend. So right away I knew that would be my life because I didn't know anyone else. I knew one option was to truly join the club in some way and be a street kid. And so I became a street kid. Quickly I learned how to survive. As street kids, we didn't beg, for money. We worked to earn to be there. But also it was safer to be active and productive, because you risk being, taken by the police or being abused by the wrong people. So being productive, coming alongside people, they would think, oh, maybe you have a family around, but really you're just pretending to steal, but also to feel you're part of the community around. And so that became my life. On the streets, I think at home I was, do I have another day? On the streets of Kampala was, do I have a next hour? Because I saw my colleagues die because they ate something wrong, because we would scavenge through, trash like animals. I mean, with dogs as well. But sometimes we would sleep under cars, and sometimes they would drive off without checking if there were kids under. And that's how my friends will lose their lives. So for me, losing my life was more of an hourly thinking. Am I going to lose my life anytime? And then finally, I got to meet a stranger after being there for 4.5 years.
Yeah. That, so one of the things I want the audience to understand is the level of cruelty also that led to more hopelessness during that time, right? Because again, I want folks to understand that have resources, that have opportunities in their life, that have never experienced anything like this. The level, because it's hard when reading it and hearing your story to really imagine that level of pain and hurting and sorrow each day, every single day, and to again keep you in self-preservation mode, but also in a state of just chronic lack of hope. You know, when we lack hope in life, it leads to despair and a reason for us to question, you know, what's my purpose? Why am I even here? What does it even matter? And something that was another thing that struck me during that time for you was there were so few occasions of kindness from people during that time. There were so many people that would intentionally seek you and your friends out to be more cruel, as if you describe it as being treated like you were just stray dogs, not even valued and appreciated as people. And so, again, I just wanted to drive that home for our audience today, that the amount of hopelessness at this point for you was more than most of us can imagine. And again, the need to eat is something that struck me, was that each day it was a matter of food. We need to find food, and that's something that so many of us take for granted each day. Right. And so tell us a little bit about now that we've gone through this portion of it, this gentleman that you just mentioned who came into your life, and what that was like to be introduced to somebody that really showed kindness for the first time for you.
You know, well, absolutely. You know, I had lived on the streets for 4.5 years, and no one had ever asked me what my name was. Think about, you know, I was garbage, I was the dog, I was just, you know, that I wasn't worthy being named or asked, you know, what my name was. So when I saw this gentleman, one, we knew who to steal from. We always, you know, we're all looking for food. That's all we looked for. He was dressed in khakis. He was wearing glasses. So I thought, there's my targets, you know. So I walked towards him as he was buying things, and I'm like, I want to help you. And right away, he stopped me, said, "Hey, what's your name?" And that for me rattled me, because no one had ever asked me my name. So the first thing he did that was strange was to ask me, "What is your name?" And I stopped and I said, "Why would he want to know my name? Like, why? You know, for all these years, no one had ever bothered, but why would he?" But also sometimes if someone was kind, for us, it was a sign of danger. So him asking me my name was also a sign, red flag, like, run for your life, you know, but quickly he gave me something to eat. And so he left. You know, one thing as you share, you know, trust is really difficult when you come from a hard place where everyone you see, everyone you've known from your family to strangers, all they have done is hurt you. It's hard to see even kindness through others, because I was always waiting. If you're kind, you're going to be mean the next time. So even him giving me food and asking me my name was Ron, you know, as soon as he gave it to me, I took off, you know. But then I saw him the next week. He did the same. He called me by my name. Again, he asked me if I can follow him so I can carry his stuff. The fourth week, I kind of knew what he drives, when he arrives, and what where he parks his car. So I was always waiting for him. It was the one day that I knew someone would know me by my name. Of all days, like you go through the day and you have the next hour. But for me, Monday between 6 and 7, I knew there's a human being that knows me by my name. So I was always waiting. It was more than food. It was just more of to hear your name being called, and he would feed me. And so he did that for a year and a half. He would always come. He would always call me by name, and he would always give me something to eat. And he would always leave, with kindness. And so with time, I really learned a little bit about him. Or I learned to trust him, that I didn't have to run. I knew he would not hurt me. He didn't call me the names that everyone called me. He saw me just as a human being. Yeah. So he fed me for 1 year and a half. And finally he said, "Hey, Peter, if you have an opportunity to go to school, would you love to go to school?" Think about this kid who's been told, "You'll never amount to anything. I wish you were never born so I don't have to feed you. You're garbage. You're an animal." And think about this stranger says, "Would you ever want to go to school?" I mean, I never dreamt to have another day, but this guy is like, "Would you love to go to school?" How, to me, that was overwhelming to understand what he was offering me, because it felt too far to understand. It's like me talking to you, Wesley, and say, "Hey, they are sending people to the Mars tomorrow, would you like to go? I mean, you laugh because you don't go to bed every day thinking, man, I wish I would go to this, to Mars or to the moon, because it's a far-fetched dream you would want to have. So for me, school seemed that way, when you're eating garbage every day, for someone to say, would you love to go to school? You're more like, wait a minute, what? Me? How?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was that foreign to you. An opportunity like that, just kindness in general, was something that was out of your world, out of your entire life experience that you had had. And over a year and a half, it took him consistently showing up, showing you a kind, caring person to build that trust. One thing I want to read from the book here, this really was profound reading this. You said, James saw in me something I was incapable of seeing in myself, that more than taking me to school or any of the other wonderful things he did for me in the coming years was the greatest gift that he gave to me. And he said that he saw potential in you. And that word, again, going back to the power of words, that was a transformational moment, hearing that from somebody in your life that actually believed in you, and kind of opened the door for you to begin believing in yourself, expressing that potential. You said, I did not matter. I did not have purpose. I did not have a life, just an existence. And I certainly did not have a future. I didn't believe I could do anything that might make tomorrow better than today. So when he said that he believed you had potential, you thought he had to be joking. So tell us just a little bit about that, hearing again, after repeatedly hearing your name, this person who's built trust with you, and sharing words that were completely new and foreign as well suddenly in your life, like potential, belief, you're worthy, you're good enough, school, opportunity, all these new words that were suddenly introduced to you. What did that feeling do for you, having those new words introduced in your life?
I think I'd always seen myself as less of a human being. That's what I was told. That's what I looked. That's how I smelled. So for him to always see the best in me began to really help me, not to see what I could do, but to say, if that guy believes it, maybe it could be true, that he really planted a little glimpse of hope in me that we're in and out. Of course, every time I saw him, I think that's when I felt like, I think there's hope. If he can feed me every time he comes, I think there's something about me that he's not feeding. There were more than 2,000 kids on the streets of Kampala, but he would always select me. So that meant there was something about me beyond other kids. That's how I felt, by being kind, by telling me like, Peter, you're brave. I mean, he used one word, brave, and I was like, what does that mean? Brave, what do you mean I'm brave? But he said, I could never survive one day on the streets. I could never do it, but you do it day and night. You are one brave kid. And I think for me, I began to hear those kind of words that I did not understand. Now putting them in my own life to say, oh, brave, that's what it means. So the more kind words I had from him, the more I began. It wasn't like the more I began to believe, oh, I can do something, but more. I try to give the best example is in Uganda, we have a fish called tilapia. And in order to eat it, you have to remove the scales because of scales. So you have to remove the scales in order to really eat it in some way or cook it. And that's how I felt like he was removing one skill of a wound at a time. Every time he said those kind words, that I felt like he was removing the shame, that not believing myself that I had any potential in life, but the more he used those words of affirmation, the more he really began to help me to see, oh, really? Do you mean I can do this? And then once he took me to school, and I went to school, not because I wanted to be somebody, but I think for me, I said, if he really believes I should go to school, I'm going to go to school to prove him for one day. I wasn't going to stay for long. It was like, one day I'm going to give you that. But again, I was thinking in 24 times, I didn't really think I could be there longer because my whole life I have always been thinking in an hourly time, or if I could go any farther, it was just 24 hours. So going to school for me was, I can do 24 hours to please this man. And that was the beginning.
That was the beginning of a whole new life, right? Getting that opportunity to go to school from the kindness of one person, beginning to believe just a little bit that there's a reason to have hope, that there's potential for a future. Absolutely amazing. when you went to school, this is something that struck me as well. You said trauma's impact lasts much longer than the trauma itself. And so I know, tell us a little bit about, even though you were removed from that difficult situation, those circumstances, you had this chance to go to school. Everyone's expectations were not exactly what you expected things to be, right? Things weren't lining up the way immediately right out of the gate that everyone had sort of put on you, those expectations, and people were suddenly expecting you to show up, to do well. They believed in you. More people believed in you, right? More teachers in your life. Other children your age actually wanted to genuinely play and have fun together, and this whole new world was here. But the trauma was still an underlying current and part of your life. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So, as a kid, you question every kindness. So when someone says, hey, would you go to class? For you, you're hearing he's about to hurt me, like the thoughts, what you're thinking and what you translate, it's funny for us who have gone through trauma. Sometimes we translate the good into bad, so he wants me to go to school, or he wants me to go to class, but he's gonna hurt me sexually, oh, he wants me to do this, but he's gonna hit me after. So you're constantly in a flight mode of like, okay, what is he gonna do, But two, I was always willing to fight. Like at any time, I'd always learned how to, to protect myself. So sometimes when they will say, hey, it's time to go eat, for me, I will lash by hitting the person because I knew he's gonna hit me or he's gonna take the food away. But then I think for me, the trick was food. Once he said there'll be dinner, lunch, and breakfast, for me, that's all I had. So I was waiting for a meal. So everything I did was, how do I survive so I can get that meal for today? Who do I not have to beat up, but just so I can have the next meal, But I didn't go to school because I didn't go to class. I went to school, but I didn't go to class because in some way I did not understand why should I go there. They gave me a bed. I had never slept on a mattress, but I did sleep on it because for me, I was like, I can't sleep on that because I've never slept on one. But two, I didn't want to pay. In case I slept on it, I knew you're going to ask me something, so I'm not going to sleep on it. So everything I had to question, if they asked me to go play soccer or football with them, to me, I was like, okay, I know you want to go fight. So I would go with an intention to protect myself. So at all times, I think I was alert and flight mode, and it was more, how do I protect myself? But slowly, if they invited me to play, then they didn't hit me. Then I was like, okay, maybe next time they'll hit me. Maybe I'll go, So I was always waiting for the words to come. But along the way, they would use words of affirmation that really began to help me understand that, like, okay, wait, what, And then I went to class because I knew I needed food. And I would get an F on every test they gave us. But every time I got a D, the teacher would say, man, that is awesome. You're really smart. And in my head, I'm like, you're kidding me, But the more I had these, words of affirmation, the more encouraged me. But also the more I began to see that they see more in me that I don't see. Like maybe I should, maybe tune up or change the way that I look at things because they see it differently. And I wanted to try and see the way they saw it. And that's kind of how I began to do well in class, or have good friends, or not do things that I had, learned to do as a street kid.
Well, and yeah, you had the willingness to try to move forward, to do a little bit more, to take another step forward. Every time that new door may have been open for you, and a little bit more kindness, another new friendship, another teacher that may have believed in you, or another opportunity to just make a little bit of progress. I love that incremental progress and healing. I think that's something that so many people can relate to in their own life as well, because so many people, so many viewers out there and members of the audience can relate to trauma in their own life, right? We all have a background of pain and difficulty in our life, and we know that it takes time. It doesn't just change overnight. Sometimes we have that expectation where it's like, well, we can just get the new house and it's a new life, or we can just get the new vehicle or have a new relationship, or we can just do this, get the new job, and suddenly everything can change and all of the past can just magically disappear. And it doesn't work like that. And I think your story is such a great reminder for so many people to continue pressing forward, right? There's going to be a new challenge along the way, something unexpected. But if you do your best, you apply yourself, there's a reward on the other side. There's a blessing on the other side. There's growth on the other side. And I love that that's part of your journey, is that consistent willingness to keep trying, right? So many people, I think, young people in this world, when given an opportunity, they're willing to try. They want to do well. They want to believe in themselves. They want to have love shown to them. And when that door is offered to them, it's amazing what can happen. And I love this part of your journey. Again, I want to save some of that for the readers to be able to pick your book, because it's absolutely incredible, your time there in school. But you mentioned here something I want to touch on. It's when we begin to see ourselves the way that others do. And this is what you were just speaking to. Those people in your life at the school there, they were actually showing you love. And this was something that you had previously experienced from your mother. You know, I know that you mentioned that from your young upbringing in your village, but not from anyone else. And when you began to see yourself the way that others in your life were seeing you, it was the first step of not letting your past define you, but begin to refine you. And I think that is such a powerful word of hope and encouragement. Again, that so many people can take away from your story, is that our past doesn't have to be the limiter on our life, the weight that we're carrying around, that hurt, that trauma, that pain that we have. It can be the thing that actually transforms us and gives us purpose. Tell us a little bit about, you know, that journey, going from those early days in school. What was it like going from there? I know doors continued to open up, opportunities kept presenting themselves. And tell us a little bit about that relationship that you had with James and his family, and what that was like.
Well, so they became my measure. What I had never seen a dad talk to their kids in a kind way, but he was the first one I saw. I never saw a family. I had never seen in my own family, that we could sit around the table. That I began to see them sit around the table. I saw him ask them about school, encourage them about school. So now I had something to really live up to, because I was like, I want to be that, because that is really cool. That really began to really kind of really set a standard for me that I really wanted to have. Yes, I can tell you, trauma sometimes is more like a bell. You hear that little bell that when comes in like, and you're like, I can hear that. And so for me, every time he tried to put me back or bring me down, so I would say, but I've survived in school for 6 months. I can do this, Or I would really see what he saw the best in me, and I say, if he believes in me, I can do it. And I think those really helped me to keep on trying the best, because once I got a D and the teacher said, you're smart, I was like, so I can get a C, right? So in some way, those began to say, well, I can get an A. And then I began to a point where I was like, I get A's every time, because I began to believe that I had the potential that anyone else had, but also the others saw the best in me. Even my jobs, sometimes we get jobs and we are worried, like, I don't think I can do this job. But from the get-go, they hired you because they believed in you. The other ring bells going on are just lies. And I had to really learn how to hear those bells and know what a lie and what the truth is, but also that I had a potential that had seen me. I think that it had seen in me. I think that really helped me to excel and do better in life and make good choices, even when it came to friends. Because I thought, if I want to do better, then I need people I can learn from, and that has been really my motto to this day, always wanting to learn from others, because they always saw the best in me that sometimes I didn't see. And that's, I think, crucial in life to, have friends that you trust, have people that see the best in you and believe what they say. And that's what I believe in James. And
I love
especially
that so
using
much.
yes. And
Well,
especially
and
using words of affirmation, that really helped me.
absolutely. Well, and you're describing, setting the bar higher for yourself. One of the things that you mentioned too was potential is great. It's an exciting thing. It opens the door for hope. But as you mentioned, potential isn't being utilized if you're not willing to put in the work and to do your very best. And I love that you were making that progression from going from F's for, for everything to maybe a D. And you're like, well, maybe I could get a C. And then you find out, hey, I am smart enough. I am capable. If I apply myself, I'm making A's. And you surrounded yourself with the right people. You had the right direction, the right guidance in your life to suddenly have this new bar set for yourself, and the impossible became possible over and over and over again. Tell us a little bit about that opportunity now to go to England, right? And to go to the next level. So you described it as if the first one, going to school, was like going to the moon. And now later in life, now it's like going to another planet. It's like going to Mars all over again. You're going farther and farther out. Tell us a little bit about that portion of your journey and what that was like as you were getting a little bit older and now going to further universities around the world, seeing more of the world, meeting more people here.
I absolutely. I think so. Once I joined James's family, from school, he would say, "Hey, come and live with us." So I began to live with them. And every time I struggled, he would always say, I don't know why he mastered the life of Joseph. He would always say, "Do you know about Joseph?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What did he do?" He was, sold by his own brother. And then he would say, "But when his brothers found him in Egypt, what did he do? What did they say?" I said, "Well, they thought he's going to kill them." But what did he say? He said, "For what they meant for evil, God used it for good to save others." So he would always repeat that. And that really helped me to not use my past as a way to say, well, I can't do that, because he would always say, Joseph always used what he had the best, even when his brothers were worried about him, what he would do. He said, "No, I love you because God used your evil into me saving other lives. And that's why I save the food to save the world, for sure." And I think for me, that really helped me to always use my foundation and doing better. And so we had visitors who were students from Durham University, and they had come to visit. And James said, "Hey, I'm busy. Would you spend time with them?" I said, "Sure, absolutely." Again, using, if he's, and these were, British men, I had never hosted white people. He's like, "Would you host them for 2 days?" And I did, because he believed in me. So I knew I can do this. And so I hosted them for a couple of days, and then they went back to England. But while they're there, they're like, "Man, we met this guy, Peter. We love what his passion and love for kids. We'd love to give him a scholarship to come and study in the United States. To come and study in England." So see, so from the kindness, I didn't have any expectation, but at the same time, believe what James said I could do. And I did it. But somehow it really changed someone else's life to say, "I would love to offer him a scholarship to go come and study." And I think that for me opened the doors for me, like, wait a minute, that kindness, being good to people, but also knowing that God loves me that much, that I can always, glean on what He's given me, that it is a tool to help others. And amazing. I think that really opened a door that I never thought I could be or go. And that's how I went to the United States. No, that's how I went to England. And that's how I came to the United States as well.
That's just absolutely amazing. I couldn't agree more, that anything that's happened, like you mentioned, God can transform for good. It's absolutely possible, regardless of what the background is, what the pain has been for anyone that's listening out there. God can turn anything that you've been through for good. And Peter's a living example of that. I want to talk about a little bit about this journey of forgiveness that came later. I truly believe that forgiveness is one of the most profound things that we can exercise and practice in our life. And you described something here about being freed from the pain of your past through that process of forgiving your father. The fear of the future was let go through that. And really the transformation that took place of all that pain now being turned into your purpose. I want to jump in. There's a section here where you describe going to Rwanda and what that really did to have a whole paradigm shift for you, getting to see some of these kids during that time. Will you kind of frame that up for the audience? There might be some viewers out there that are too young to remember the genocide that happened in Rwanda. So kind of let us know about that next phase of your life when you got to be a part of that for that first trip and what that was like to see what those kids and those families and those people were going through, and how that kind of changed some of your perspective on your direction in life.
Yes, absolutely. You know, so James was the head of Compassion International Uganda. So he asked me, remember, my dad is from Rwanda. So we speak the language. I speak Kenyan Rwanda. So he said, you know, would you join the rescue team to go provide food, medication, and shelter for kids? I was like, my first job, absolutely. I would like to do that. And so we drove and went to Rwanda, but I had no clue. Like, I don't think I was prepared to what I was about to see. I think on my first day there, I saw more than 2,000 dead bodies. And the fear was more of, oh no, I'm going to die. That there's no way you can see that I'm going to turn around, because in my head, I thought, this is it. You know, this is it. That I was so angry to see humans treated like they were just trash, to being put in mass grave. And I could not believe, how could people do this, you know? But also my question for, I think I wanted to go to heaven. So I asked the driver, I said, hey, I think I want to go to heaven. We're going to die. And he's like, Peter, you work for Compassion. You go to church. You are believe. I said, no, I act like one. I look like one, but I don't know him as my Lord and Savior. And so we prayed, because I knew, okay, this is it. But through the prayer, I really began to see, man, I am capable of doing the same thing, because I hated my dad so, so much. I always felt like the Bible was so unfair to say, you know, forgive even those who wronged against you, that I really did not want to forgive my dad. So I'd held on that anger, that I wanted to harm him. I was 18, 19, now 20. I was like, I'm going to go home and I take my opportunity to hurt him as well. So as we praying, that's when I realized, like, I am looking at these people saying, how could they do these people? But then I looked at my own heart saying, I am capable of doing the same. Like, I am capable of killing my dad, just as these people have taken people's lives. And that's kind of when it really, you know, shook on me, like, well, why should I do what God said he would do for me? You know, he said he will rescue me, he will fight for me. So why would I want to hurt my, you know, my dad in a way that I knew that was not my job, you know, but also knowing that me harboring that anger was letting my dad rule me for the rest of my life, you know.
Wow.
I felt like if I didn't let it go, he would have won for the rest of my life, and I did not want that happen, you know. So forgiveness was the best way that I felt I needed to let it go. And the
Wow.
moments I did that, I felt I lost like 50 pounds in an instant, you know. It was that heavy that I had always felt, you know. Again, I was 19, 20 at this point. But man, my anger towards my dad was so overtaking everything about my life.
Wow.
And in those moments, I knew, if I can watch people destroy other people's lives, I saw myself in it. Like, I am capable of doing that. And
Wow.
before I do that, I needed to ask forgiveness and forgive my dad as well.
That to me is one of the most powerful points of your story and of the book. For those of you that don't know out there, what was taking place in Rwanda, there was 800,000 people that were massacred over 100 days. And so when Peter describes being on the scene and being there, it's beyond what most of us can comprehend, the brutality of what was taking place. And what your example is of humility in that moment, to recognize the hatred, the cruelty that's being inflicted on innocent people all around me, is the same hatred that I'm harboring and the bitterness I have in my heart right now. That to me is something that all of us can really look at and reflect on, because we no doubt have had people in our lives in our past that were influencers on our life, that mistreated us, that let us down, that broke our heart, that hurt us. And we harbor that hatred and that bitterness in our heart. So many of us do. I've had that on my own journey, recognizing, wait a second, like you mentioned, if I continue to hold on to this, that person is still hurting me. They're still inflicting the pain. And who's responsible for letting that go? And I love this because it's so empowering. You were able to forgive your dad despite everything he had done, but it didn't require him to ask for forgiveness in that moment.
Correct.
This was something between you and your creator, and saying, hey, I need healing. I need to be able to receive and give forgiveness because of this weight that I've been carrying for too long in my life. And I love that that can take place in any moment for anyone in their lives. It doesn't mean that the other party has to be involved. And again, that level of humility, Peter, is something that's incredibly remarkable that you demonstrated, because when we look at other people, it's so easy for us to judge others by their actions, especially when it's something so heinous and so wrong. And we can say, well, how can someone do something like this? And how could they behave this way? And then when we really look at ourselves and we have self-reflection, we find out, wait a second, I have some of the same intentions of maybe hurting someone else or lying or cheating or stealing or whatever it might be. And it comes from that same place. And so many of us have that opportunity, like I said, to let that go. And I love that so much. However, you said something that I've never heard before, and I 100% agree with. There's a point in the book that you said you recognize that forgiveness is a daily practice. And that is so powerful, because a lot of us think that once we go through that phase of forgiving that person or that situation, then we can move on with our life and everything's better and everything's good. And, the trauma goes away and all the hurt and all the pain, and it all disappears. Well, there are triggers, as you mentioned earlier, with trauma and pain, and those things can continue coming back up. And forgiveness has to be a daily choice. And I just love that so much. I know that that's something that's apparent now in your life today. As you mentioned, the example that James set for you of what a father can be, what a man can be, what a role model can be. I know that you exemplify that today. So tell us a little bit about where you are and that next phase later, recognizing that your purpose was really to help kids and to help children. How did that door open up into becoming a foster dad? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be I've always wanted to be a dad, because I think of what James had showed me, that what a dad ought to be, that I knew my life had changed. But also I wanted to show my dad what a father ought to, like, maybe he didn't have a good example, that I can be that good example in his life. But I was single. I traveled for Compassion International all over the world, so I didn't have time. But also I believed the lie. I had traveled over the world. I had never seen a Black person adopting kids in Uganda or Ethiopia or anywhere in the world. So I believe, like, well, if you're Black, you can't adopt. But that wasn't true. So when I came to the United States, I really struggled with my faith, seeing the food that was thrown away, like watching how much food was thrown away, and growing from a place where I was dying to have just a bowl of beans, And I was like struggling with love. Like, do you love us? Are we loved the same way? The others will die for lack of, but others will have so much to throw away. Yeah, and that's kind of when it hit me, like, well, wait a minute, Peter, you are blessed. You're giving so much. I think for me, too much is given, much is required. That reflected on me, like, I have so much. I don't have to point a finger at anyone, but I can do what I can do to change a life. And so I walked in the foster care system and I said, hey, I'm single, but I have time. Anyway, I could mentor kids that need a place to be or someone to hang out with. And the social worker said, hey, have you ever thought of being a foster dad? I said, I don't qualify. She said, why? I said, I'm single. She's like, no, you can't be a dad. And that day I signed up to be a dad. And since then I've had 24 kids. Again, just really gleaning on what James taught me, to use our past as a foundation to do better for ourselves and for others. And I knew, helping kids in the foster care who had gone through every trauma I have gone through, think of everything on the planet I have seen, I've experienced. And I knew I could be a good example to them, because I knew I would understand their trauma. And so it's been really a joy to be a dad, probably the greatest gift, in some way, to see, yes, I get triggered sometimes, but to be able to look through and say, that's a lie, that's my dad, that's not true, and come back and be able to look at what James taught me and the principles in life and values that I follow to help me in moments to be the best dad I can be. But also to understand trauma, I can see trauma from a mile, but be able to truly come alongside a child and say, it's gonna be okay. I know you're afraid, but it's gonna be okay. We go to a store and sometimes they'll steal food because they're worried. Will there be food somewhere? But to come in and say, I know, I've been there, I understand. But I promise I will do the best I can to make sure that we have food and we're safe. So for me, yes, gleaning on my past really, it's using it as a foundation to do better for myself and to do for others. And that's my day-to-day life. And I found my calling to truly be an advocate for those who are the most vulnerable, especially children.
Oh,
And I'm
that's
really
so
glad.
awesome. That is so awesome. I love that so much that everything that you went through and experienced equipped you and it prepared you for what you're doing today. And it brings so much value and love to all these kids that you're bringing into your home. You've adopted a few now. And like we mentioned in the opening of the conversation here, that you guys have a busy family at home.
Right.
And I love how you mention that kindness of one person of James in your life, not just changed your life, but changed generations. You go in the book describing how it changed your entire village, your direct family with your siblings, your mother, the pride that she has in seeing who you've become and what you've accomplished. And now, obviously, all these children that have someone now to show them love, to bring into your home. And you've just changed, you've created a ripple effect. James in your life created a ripple effect. Now you're serving in that same capacity, offering hope, offering opportunities for these young people. And that's just absolutely incredible, Peter. I want to encourage everybody again to get the book, order it wherever books are sold. The release date is August 30th. You can pre-order now. You will be blown away. I'm not kidding. This was a short summary of Peter's journey, but when you read this book, it's going to give you a whole new life perspective. Something I want to share with the audience as well, Peter, is for those that might be interested. You know, you've mentioned that foster care isn't for everybody, but for those that just have a little bit of an interest, what would you suggest for people that want to get started, that maybe want to learn more in the area wherever they live in the world, and just find out, hey, how do I reach out? What are the first steps for them to take?
You know, I think we get overwhelmed when we think of taking care of someone, or we think it's someone else's job, you know. But I think for me is revisiting my own self, revisit your own world and say, what can I do? Can I treat my colleague at work maybe better? You know, can I understand what's going on in their life? Maybe, you know, that family you don't barely call every time. Maybe can I check in and see how they're doing? Even when you know you don't like it, you've had issues, but to truly, you know, say in my own life, how do I use my day-to-day life to change someone else's life? But also on the other side is, how do I visit my past to make sure that it is not holding me to do what I am meant to do? You know, what lies am I believing? Because that's the common thing, that we didn't have a good dad, so I cannot be a dad because I had a bad dad. No, I had the worst dad, I can tell you, but I'm okay that I can say. So to revisit our own selves sometimes and say, what is in my past that is holding me to do the best I can do? You know, what are things that I'm holding on that I need to let go, because they are also holding you to what you're capable of doing for the future and now. So it's both ways: what small things I can do to change someone's life, but also what can I visit my own life and see what things are holding me from being the best of me in a way.
Oh,
And I
I love
think
that.
with each one of us doing one, either revisiting ourselves or changing one's life, that's what it takes. I'm a single dad. Some people take me for coffee. Some people send me a gift to go buy kids. Some people just call and say, "What's up, Peter?" You know. So there are ways that we can impact other people's lives along the way. That don't estimate yourself. You know, you have a potential. You're seen, heard, and you're known, and you can change the world in small ways.
I love that so much. That's so encouraging, and it can bring hope to so many people, knowing that everybody's capable, like you said, of bringing hope to someone else's life. We have sponsored a daughter through Compassion. She's actually in Rwanda. We've been with her for, gosh, probably 6 years now, and it is such a joy in our life, and it's so simple. It's so simple. I want to encourage everybody out there that's an opportunity as well. Look up an organization. Compassion, as you mentioned, is an excellent one. But something as simple as being able to write letters to a child to let them know that they matter and that you care can change their world. It can change their future. Another thing also, I mentioned this to you, Peter, before we got started. We have a children's shelter here in the area where I live, Northwest Arkansas, which was a
Mhm.
neighbor of yours. You lived in Oklahoma for a while when I
Yes.
heard that. I thought that
Uh-huh.
was funny.
Yes.
That's right next door. We have a children's shelter here. Most areas where people live, there's going to be some type of children's shelter where they bring in kids that have been neglected, abandoned, or abused. And they're always looking for volunteers as well. That's something that I was able to experience recently. I've had the opportunity. So, as a doctor of physical therapy, I've worked in hospitals and rehab centers, and I've worked with young kids that have been through trauma and difficulty. But something as simple as showing up for an afternoon to volunteer, to just see some of these kids that are going through challenges, is something that's so simple. You can bring your own children with you. They can play for a little while. You can make a donation. And again, just absolutely transform the trajectory of a young person's life by letting them know that they matter, and that you care, and that they're worthy of being loved. That's something that all people need to be reminded of, young and old
And
alike,
all,
every
yes.
age.
And even our biological kids, how often do you say, son, you matter, you belong, you're special? It's easy to provide for them. It's easy to give them all they need. But do we ever stop and say, you're a gift to me? Like I didn't know how to do 1, 2, 3, 4, but as my daughter, as my son, you've taught me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're chosen. They are. I've mastered those 12 words of affirmation to use them every day. And it's just not those who are vulnerable, but it's our kids. It's your wife. How often do you tell your wife, you're chosen? Of all people, God chose you, or whoever chose you to be my wife. How do we special? Special is not when they wear pretty dresses, but even when they're in those times when they don't love you, to still say you're special.
That's
And they
right.
humble me every day that I can, I can be the best I can be.
That's
Yes.
so awesome. And I mean, you're describing love as the verb, love as the action, not the feeling. And that's the feeling can come later. Sometimes the best opportunity to love someone else in our life that we care about is when it's hardest to, when it
Yes.
requires the most patience, when it requires us to become more humble. Sometimes those are the greatest opportunities to show and express love. Where's the best place for people to find you, Peter? Where would you like people to connect with you and learn more about the work that you're doing, the company, like I mentioned, of the same name, called Now I Am Known? It's your show, the vlog, it's your company that, tell us a little bit about what the company does actually with the plushies.
Yeah, so we created 12 words of affirmation, and we created a plushie that is wearing the bandana, and you get a bandana and a box and a plushie. So everyone we sell, the other one goes to kids in the foster care and kids at the hospital. To really always remind the kids that you're special, you matter, and we love you. We have the vlog, the YouTube channel. It's easy to put a picture, but I wanted to show how my foster kids, or many foster kids, are just regular normal kids. I think sometimes we're afraid of them, or we label them into something. So I wanted to show that, hey, yeah, normal kids, if you can journey with me, you get to really see and hear their voices and see what they do. And it's fun.
It's
Also,
hilarious.
yes, we have Facebook as well. Facebook, Peter Mutabazi, or Foster Dad Flipper, or Instagram. We're on every channel. TikTok, Now I'm Known. That we truly try to advocate and share journeys so we can inspire you, but also maybe we can inspire you to inspire someone else as well. And that's what we love to do. And I speak. My 99.9% of my time is I get to share in churches, organization, events, and conferences as well. So if you want me to come and visit and share, absolutely. I would love to come and
Amazing.
impact your journey. We can all do one
Amazing.
thing, and we can all be part of our community and help the most vulnerable.
Absolutely. Peter, thank you so much. I want to let you know that I'm so grateful for you and all the work that you're doing in the world and touching the lives of not just young people in need, but inspiring those that can make a difference, that can contribute and help make an impact. You're a light in this world, and I'm truly grateful for you. Everybody, again, this is the book, Now I Am Known. Pre-order it today. You will not regret getting this book. You will not be able to put it down. Look up Peter and his wonderful family and their adventures and everything they're doing. And again, like he mentioned, if you want to invite Peter to come speak, at an event or for your organization. This man is changing the world, and we're truly grateful for you, Peter. So thank you so much for being here on Purpose Mindset with me today. And I want to remind everybody to serve with humility, lead with confidence, and live with purpose, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thanks again. God bless.